"You'll never be successful," said the millionaire to the waitress. 10 days later, she bought his bank, but her first act left billionaires crying. Chilling justice nobody expected ever. But before we begin, subscribe now, or this might be our last meeting. Follow, comment, and share to stay connected. Don't miss out. Let's dive in. The coffee machine hissed like a dying animal, spitting steam into the greasy air of Murphy's diner. Camilla Reyes wiped down the counter for the third time that hour, her movements practiced and mechanical. Through the rain-streaked windows, the Hudson River stretched gray and indifferent, mirroring the sky that hadn't seen sun in days. She refilled cup after cup, her smile polite and distant. The businessman in the corner booth scrolled through stock reports on his tablet, oblivious to the woman who'd once analyzed portfolios worth more than he'd earn in a lifetime. The couple by the window discussed mortgage rates over pancakes, their voices carrying that particular anxiety Camilla recognized too well, the fear of falling, of losing everything. She knew that fear intimately. 3 years ago, she'd worn tailored suits and carried a leather briefcase through the marble halls of Wentworth National Bank. She'd been good at her job, better than good. Her analysis had saved the bank millions, identified opportunities others missed. Charles Wentworth himself had called her brilliant, indispensable. Then he'd called her a thief. The memory still had teeth. She could see herself in that conference room, surrounded by lawyers and journalists, flash bulbs exploding like grenades, the carefully forged documents bearing her signature, the falsified reports showing money diverted into accounts she'd never opened. Charles' expression, perfectly calibrated concern masking cold calculation. "Miss, could I get a refill?" Camilla blinked, the present reasserting itself. She poured coffee for the elderly man at the counter, noting how his hands trembled slightly. Parkinson's, probably. She'd learned to notice these details, the small human fractures that her old life had trained her to overlook. The lunch rush thinned. Rain drummed steadily against the windows, turning Manhattan into a watercolor of grays and browns. Camilla cleared tables, stacking plates with the efficiency of repetition. This was her life now, wiping down vinyl booths, counting tips that barely covered rent, pretending the weight of injustice wasn't slowly crushing her. The headline had been brutal. Greedy waitress betrays bank, Wentworth analyst caught in $1 million fraud. They'd printed her photo, the one from the company directory where she'd been smiling. The irony hadn't been lost on her. The media loved a good fall from grace, especially when it involved a woman who'd gotten too ambitious, reached too high. No one had believed her. Why would they? Charles Wentworth was Manhattan royalty, fourth-generation banker, philanthropist, friend to senators and CEOs. She was nobody, a girl from Queens who'd clawed her way into a world that never truly accepted her. She lived now in a cramped apartment in Washington Heights with Lucas, her 13-year-old nephew. The boy had come to her after his mother, Camilla's sister, died of cancer 2 years ago. Just one more weight she carried, though Lucas himself was never the burden. His presence kept her human, gave her a reason to keep pretending everything would be okay. Hidden in a locked box beneath her bed were the original documents, the real reports, the emails, the evidence that would prove Charles had orchestrated everything. She'd managed to download them before security escorted her out, her belongings in a cardboard box, her dignity scattered across the trading floor. But evidence meant nothing without power. She'd taken them to lawyers who'd smiled sympathetically and explained about retainer fees she couldn't afford. She'd approached journalists who'd listened politely and done nothing. Charles Wentworth had friends in every newsroom in New York, so the documents stayed hidden. And Camilla stayed here, in this diner that smelled of burnt coffee and broken dreams. Murphy's had become both refuge and prison. Safe, because no one from her old life would ever set foot in a place like this. A prison, because every day here was a reminder of everything she'd lost. The bell above the door chimed. Camilla glanced up reflexively, taking in the new customer with the practiced assessment of someone who'd spent 3 years reading people for tips. Male, late 30s, expensive coat soaked through. He'd be irritable, demanding, probably a terrible tipper. She grabbed a menu and a pot of fresh coffee, squaring her shoulders. Outside, the rain fell harder, turning the city into a blur of reflected lights and shadows. Somewhere in those shadows, Charles Wentworth was still winning, still smiling, still destroying lives with the casual cruelty of someone who'd never faced consequences. But Camilla had learned patience. She'd learned to wait, to watch, to keep her rage buried where it couldn't consume her. Lucas needed her. The rent needed paying. Survival required focus. She approached the new customer's table, coffee pot in hand, her expression professionally neutral. She had no way of knowing that her careful, constructed life was about to shatter. That fate, if you believed in such things, was about to offer her a chance at something she'd stopped letting herself imagine. Justice. Nathan Blake burst through the door like a man fleeing a crime scene, water streaming from his Brioni suit. His phone was pressed to his ear, his free hand gesturing sharply at no one. "I don't care what the board thinks. Cancel the Shanghai trip and reschedule the Deutsche Bank meeting for Thursday." He ended the call without ceremony and scanned the diner with the particular disdain of someone confronting a space beneath his usual standards. Every table was occupied with exactly the kind of people Nathan Blake typically paid others to deal with. Working class, tired, distinctly unimpressed by his presence. Camilla approached with coffee pot and menu. "Sit anywhere you'd like." He took the booth by the window without acknowledging her, already pulling out his tablet and a second phone. Water pooled on the vinyl seat beneath him. His jaw was tight, his movements sharp. A man whose carefully orchestrated day had gone catastrophically wrong. "Coffee, now, no cream." He didn't look up. Camilla poured without comment, setting the cup down with deliberate gentleness. Years of this work had taught her that men like Nathan Blake, men who commanded rather than asked, rarely noticed the people serving them, which was fine. Invisibility had become her armor. She turned to leave. "This is cold." She turned back. "I just poured it." "Then your machine's broken." He pushed the cup toward her, eyes still on his screen. "My time is money. I suggest you treat it accordingly." Something flickered in Camilla's chest, not quite anger, more like the ghost of the woman she'd been, the analyst who'd faced down hostile boardrooms and never flinched. "Interesting," she said, her voice level. "I've always found that a poor person's time is worth exactly the same as a rich person's. 60 minutes to an hour, regardless of tax bracket." The diner fell silent. Nathan's head came up slowly, his gray eyes finding hers for the first time. There was surprise there, and something else, the look of someone unused to being contradicted by staff. "Excuse me, the coffee's hot. Your expectations might be the problem." She set down a fresh cup anyway. "Anything else?" For a moment he simply stared. Then, impossibly, his mouth quirked slightly. Not quite a smile, but close. "No, thank you." Camilla retreated to the counter, feeling the weight of his gaze following her. She'd just committed career suicide in a job that barely qualified as a career. But the small rebellion felt good, like stretching a muscle too long unused. Nathan returned to his tablet, but his attention kept fragmenting. He pulled up quarterly projections, cash flow analyses, acquisition models. The Shanghai deal was collapsing, 3 months of negotiations evaporating because his partner couldn't read a simple market trend. Idiots. He was surrounded by idiots. He scrolled through the projections again, his irritation building. The numbers were wrong. Had to be. He ran them twice more before. "Your depreciation calculation's off." Nathan looked up sharply. The waitress stood beside his table, coffee pot in hand, her expression utterly neutral. "What?" She gestured at his screen with the pot. "Line 47. You're using straight-line depreciation on assets that should be accelerated. Throws off your entire tax projection for Q3. Nathan stared at the screen, then at her, then back at the screen. She was right. The error was small but significant, the kind of mistake that could cost millions in a deal this size. "You understand financial modeling." "I understand math." She refilled his cup without being asked. "Free refills, by the way. Time efficient. Where did you learn to read balance sheets?" His voice had changed, less command, more genuine curiosity. "You'd be surprised what you can pick up listening to people who talk too much and listen too little." She moved to the next table, leaving Nathan with the faint impression he'd just been insulted and complimented simultaneously. He watched her work, efficient, composed, completely unimpressed by him. It was so unusual that it took him a moment to identify the feeling spreading through his chest. Interest. He corrected the error on his spreadsheet, then spent the next 20 minutes pretending to work while actually observing her. The way she handled difficult customers with the same calm firmness she'd used on him. How her eyes occasionally drifted to the window, something distant and unreachable in her expression. When he finally stood to leave, He found himself walking to the counter rather than simply dropping cash on the table. "What's your name?" She glanced up from the register, something guarded flickering across her face. "Camilla." "Nathan Blake." He extended his hand. She looked at it for a moment before accepting. Her grip was firm, professional. "I know. You're on the cover of Forbes this month." "You read Forbes?" "I read everything." She released his hand. "Will that be all, Mr. Blake?" He should leave. He had 17 calls to return, a company to run, a life that didn't include cheap diners and mysterious waitresses, but something about the way she held herself, proud despite the stained uniform, intelligent despite the menial work, made him hesitate. "I'll be back," he said. "Most people are. Coffee's consistent, even if it's not gourmet." Nathan smiled, a real one this time. "I wasn't talking about the coffee." He left her standing there, something shifting in her carefully maintained composure. Outside, the rain had softened to a drizzle. Nathan climbed into his waiting car, but his mind stayed in that diner, replaying their conversation. He'd forgotten to tip. The realization made him laugh, a sound that startled his driver. Nathan Blake never forgot details. But then again, Camilla wasn't a detail. She was a mystery, and Nathan Blake had always been drawn to mysteries worth solving. Nathan returned to Murphy's Diner 3 days later, telling himself it was convenient, that the coffee was adequate, that he simply needed a quiet place to work between meetings. All lies, and he knew it. Camilla looked up when the bell chimed, her expression shifting through surprise before settling into something carefully neutral. "Mr. Blake, back for more consistent coffee?" Something like that. He took the same booth by the window, noting how the gray afternoon light softened the harsh lines of the place. "And it's Nathan." She approached with the coffee pot, pouring without being asked. The ghost of something, amusement maybe, flickered across her face. "Nathan, then. Lunch specials meatloaf. I'd recommend the burger instead. You don't trust the chef's special?" "I trust that Tuesday's meatloaf is Monday's mystery meat with better marketing." She pulled out her order pad. "Burger, please." He watched her write, noticed the calluses on her fingers. "You're overqualified for this work." Her hand paused, just for a second. "Most people are overqualified for the work they do. That's not what I meant." He leaned forward slightly. "The financial analysis the other day, that wasn't casual knowledge." Camilla met his eyes and he saw something there. A warning maybe, or a wall going up. "I used to work in finance. Didn't work out." "The burger comes with fries or coleslaw?" "Fries." "Which bank?" She hesitated, and Nathan recognized the look of someone calculating how much truth to tell. "Wentworth National. 3 years ago." The name triggered recognition. Something about a scandal, a fraud case that had dominated financial news briefly before being buried under newer outrages. Before Nathan could press further, the bell above the door chimed again. The man who entered carried himself like someone accustomed to deference. Silver hair, tailored suit, the kind of confidence that came from generations of privilege. Nathan recognized the type instantly, old money pretending to be self-made. Camilla went very still. The man's eyes found her, and his expression transformed into something predatory. A smile spread across his face, cold and delighted. "Well, well, Camilla Reyes, I heard you'd landed on your feet." His gaze swept the diner with theatrical disdain, though landed might be generous. The ambient noise of the diner, conversations, clinking dishes, the hiss of the grill, seemed to evaporate. Every customer turned, sensing drama. Camilla's face had drained of color, but her voice came out steady. "Mr. Wentworth, coffee?" "Oh, I think we're past such formalities." Charles Wentworth moved closer, invading her space with practiced cruelty. "Tell me, do you steal the tips or have you moved on to bigger scores? Though I suppose there's not much to steal here." He laughed, the sound echoing obscenely in the silence. Nathan felt something cold settle in his chest. This was the man she'd worked for, the bank owner, and the way Camilla held herself, rigid, fighting for composure, told him everything about their history. "I'll get your coffee," Camilla said quietly. "No need." Charles pulled out his wallet, extracted a $20 bill, and very deliberately tore it in half. He dropped the pieces on the counter. "For the ambiance. Though I suppose damaged money suits you, both worthless now." He walked out, still laughing. The door swung shut behind him, the bells chime obscenely cheerful. For a moment no one moved. Then gradually, awkwardly, the diner's patrons returned to their meals, voices low and uncomfortable. Camilla stood frozen, staring at the torn bill. Nathan watched her throat work as she swallowed, watched her hands clench, then deliberately relax. She picked up the destroyed money with steady fingers, though her face had gone from pale to flushed, humiliation turning to rage, then back to that terrible, practiced calm. She moved through the diner mechanically, refilling cups, taking orders, her smile never quite reaching her eyes. But Nathan saw the cost of that composure in the tremor she couldn't quite hide, the way she gripped the coffee pot too tightly. When she finally brought his burger, he spoke before thinking. Who was that man? Camilla set down the plate with precise care. A customer. Camilla. She looked at him then, really looked at him, and Nathan saw exhaustion in her eyes, the kind that came from carrying weight too long. Charles Wentworth, owner of Wentworth National Bank, my former employer. He's the reason you left finance. He's the reason I was destroyed. The words came out flat, factual. 3 years ago, he accused me of embezzling $4 million. Forged documents, falsified reports, all with my signature. The media called me the greedy waitress who betrayed her bank. They loved that detail, that I'd worked as a waitress to pay for college. Made the whole thing more salacious. Nathan's burger sat forgotten. But you didn't do it. Of course I didn't do it. Something flickered across her face. Not anger, but something colder. Charles did. He needed a scapegoat for his own theft, and I was convenient. Smart enough to be believable, powerless enough to be disposable. Why didn't you fight? Her laugh was bitter. With what? Charles Wentworth has friends in every courthouse and newsroom in New York. I had a public defender who could barely remember my name and a reputation already destroyed. The case was settled quietly. I agreed not to sue in exchange for dropped charges. My lawyer called it a victory. That's not justice. No. She picked up the torn 20 from the counter, smoothing the pieces carefully. But it's reality. People like Charles don't face consequences. People like me just try to survive. She walked away before Nathan could respond, disappearing into the kitchen. He sat there, burger cooling on his plate, trying to reconcile what he'd just witnessed with the composed woman who'd corrected his financial models. The truth settled over him like cold water. Camilla hadn't been overqualified for waitress work. She'd been exiled to it, branded a criminal, stripped of her career, reduced to serving coffee to people who'd once been her peers. And Charles Wentworth had just waltzed in to twist the knife. Nathan pulled out his phone, typed in Camilla Reyes Wentworth Bank Fraud, and started reading. The articles were brutal, her photo plastered across tabloids, her background dissected, her ambition painted as greed. The narrative was neat, convincing, too neat. When Camilla returned with his check, Nathan made a decision. I'd like to help. Help with what? Whatever happened between you and Wentworth. I have resources, connections. No. The word was sharp, final. I appreciate the impulse, Nathan, but this isn't your problem. And Charles Wentworth isn't someone you want as an enemy. Maybe not, but he's already yours. Something shifted in her expression, surprise maybe, or the dangerous stirring of hope. Why would you risk that? Nathan thought about his answer, about the woman standing before him with her pride in tatters and her spine still straight, about the casual cruelty of powerful men and the cost of looking away. Someone once told me that a poor person's time is worth the same as a rich person's, he said quietly. I'm starting to think the same applies to justice. Camilla's eyes glistened, but she didn't let the tears fall. He'll destroy you too. He can try. Nathan stood, left cash on the table, enough to cover the meal 3 times over. Think about it. He walked out into the gray afternoon. The image of torn money and Camilla's careful composure burned into his mind. Behind him, through the window, he saw her finally let her shoulders sag, saw her press her palms against the counter and breathe. The past wasn't just knocking at her door anymore. It had kicked it down. Charles Wentworth's office occupied the entire 52nd floor of the Wentworth building, with windows that turned Manhattan into a kingdom sprawling at his feet. He stood at those windows now, phone to his ear, smile sharp as broken glass. Yes, I'm certain. Camilla Reyes is attempting to extort me. His voice carried practiced distress. I gave that woman a chance when no one else would, and this is how she repays my charity. On the other end, Marcus Chen from the Financial Times made sympathetic noises. Charles could hear him typing, the story already taking shape. I have documentation, Charles continued, pulling up files on his computer, files he'd spent the last 48 hours creating. Emails demanding payment in exchange for her silence, threats to fabricate evidence against the bank. It's heartbreaking, really. I wanted to believe she'd reformed. He hung up and immediately dialed again, then again. By the time the sun set over the Hudson, Charles had contacted 6 journalists, 4 lawyers, and 3 former colleagues who owed him favors. The machinery of reputation destruction was well oiled. He'd used it before. The fabricated emails were masterpieces of plausibility. Camilla's supposed threats, carefully worded to sound desperate and vindictive. The forged contracts showed her attempting to sell insider information to competitors. Charles had even manufactured bank statements showing suspicious deposits into an account bearing her name, an account he'd opened himself 3 days ago. By morning, the first articles appeared online. Disgraced analyst attempts blackmail, Wentworth Bank victim again. The story spread like fire through dry brush. The old scandal resurfaced, this time with fresh outrage. Comment sections filled with vitriol. People loved watching someone fall twice. Television news picked it up by afternoon, Charles's carefully rehearsed interview playing on loop. "I have nothing but compassion for Ms. Reyes," he told the camera, expression perfectly calibrated between sadness and disappointment. "But I cannot allow her personal struggles to damage innocent investors and employees." Nathan saw the first headline during a board meeting. His phone buzzed, then buzzed again. Alerts from news apps, messages from concerned colleagues. He excused himself, stepping into the hallway to read. The articles painted Camilla as a desperate criminal, someone whose initial fraud had merely been prologue to escalating corruption. Quotes from anonymous sources described her as manipulative, calculating, dangerous. His phone rang. James Morrison, his head of legal. "Nathan, we need to talk about your association with Camilla Reyes." "What association?" "You've been seen at that diner multiple times. There are photos." "If she's attempting to leverage your connection, she's not leveraging anything." "Nathan." James's voice took on that particular tone of patient condescension. "I know you want to see the best in people, but this woman has a documented history of fraud. Now she's allegedly attempting extortion. Distance yourself. Immediately." After James came calls from 3 board members, his PR team, and his mother, all saying variations of the same thing. "Protect yourself. She's dangerous. You're being manipulated." By evening, Nathan's certainty had developed hairline fractures. He went to the diner at closing time, finding Camilla wiping down tables in the empty space. She looked up when he entered, and something in her expression told him she already knew why he was there. "I saw the news," Nathan said. "Everyone saw the news." She continued wiping the table, movements methodical. "That's the point of news." "Camilla, did you come to ask if it's true?" She straightened, meeting his eyes. "Whether I'm attempting to blackmail Charles Wentworth, whether I'm the monster he says I am, I came to ask if you lied to me." The words hung between them, accusation and plea tangled together. Camilla's expression didn't change, but something in her posture shifted, resignation settling over her like a familiar coat. "No, Nathan, I didn't lie to you." Her voice was steady, stripped of emotion. "But you've already decided to believe him anyway. It's fine, everyone does." "That's not... You want to know what really happened?" She cut him off, anger finally breaking through. "Charles Wentworth stole $4 million from his own bank. When the auditors got close, he needed someone to blame. I was convenient, ambitious, hungry, too confident for someone from Queens. He forged documents, planted evidence, and destroyed my life. Now he's doing it again because I had the audacity to still exist where he might see me. The evidence is fake, just like last time, just like it will be next time." She grabbed her coat. "But here's what I learned 3 years ago. Evidence doesn't matter when money writes the narrative. Charles has resources I'll never have. And you," her voice wavered, just slightly, "you believe in justice and fairness because you've never had to live without them. That's not fair. No, it's not." She moved toward the door. "But you should go, Nathan, before being associated with me damages your reputation too. Charles destroys everything he touches. I won't let you be collateral damage." She walked out into the rain, leaving Nathan standing in the empty diner with the taste of doubt bitter in his mouth. He returned to his office downtown, the late hour meaning he had the place to himself. At his desk, he pulled up everything he could find about the original Wentworth scandal, not the news articles, but the actual documents. Court filings, audit reports, settlement agreements. Hours passed. Coffee went cold. Rain streaked the windows. And slowly, carefully, The truth began assembling itself from fragments. A signature that didn't quite match, dates that didn't align, transfer patterns that made no sense for embezzlement but perfect sense for money laundering. And there, buried in an appendix of a document no one had bothered to read, a report signed by Charles Wentworth authorizing the exact transfers that had supposedly been Camilla's theft. Nathan sat back, the document glowing on his screen. She'd been telling the truth. Charles Wentworth had destroyed an innocent woman to protect himself, and now he was doing it again, more viciously, because Nathan's interest in Camilla threatened to expose the original lie. The certainty settled into Nathan's chest like ice water. Camilla wasn't the criminal. She was the victim, and he'd almost become Charles's accomplice. Nathan didn't sleep. He spent the night excavating Charles Wentworth's digital empire, peeling back layers of corporate structure like someone dismantling a bomb. What he found made his blood run cold. The audio files revealed themselves first. Board meeting recordings from 3 years ago. Timestamps matching Camilla's supposed fraud. Nathan ran them through analysis software. The waveforms showed splices, edits, words lifted from different conversations and stitched together. Charles's voice saying Camilla authorized these transfers had been constructed from 3 separate recordings. The bank statements were worse. Nathan cross-referenced them against Federal Reserve records, data that couldn't be falsified. The money hadn't gone to Camilla's accounts. It had flowed through shell corporations, ultimately landing in holdings controlled by Charles himself. $4 million. Exactly the amount he'd accused her of stealing. Nathan pulled up Charles's personal finances next. There, purchases made the same month as the fraud. A yacht registered in the Caymans. Property in Monaco. All paid for with supposedly embezzled money. The pattern was elegant in its cruelty. Charles had created a perfect scapegoat. Someone ambitious enough to be believable, vulnerable enough to be crushed. By dawn, Nathan had assembled a case that would destroy Charles. But first, he owed Camilla an apology. The storm hit Manhattan like divine retribution. Nathan's driver refused the trip to Washington Heights, so Nathan walked, coat soaked through by the second block. Lightning illuminated the city in stark flashes. Camilla's building was a walk-up where streetlights flickered and died. Nathan climbed 5 flights, found her door, knocked. Silence. Then, cautious footsteps. The door opened a crack, chain engaged. Camilla's eyes widened. Nathan? It's 2 a.m. I know. I need to talk to you. She studied him, soaked, exhausted, clutching a leather folder. Something shifted in her expression. She closed the door, unhooked the chain, opened it again. You look like you swam here. Walked. Nathan stepped inside, water pooling on worn linoleum. The apartment was tiny but clean, furniture secondhand but maintained. Textbooks on the coffee table, Lucas's homework. Camilla closed the door, arms crossed. She wore sweatpants and an oversized sweater, hair pulled back. Somehow, she looked more formidable than ever. If you're here to ask me to sign something, I saw the truth. The words came out harsh, urgent, all of it. The falsified recordings, the bank statements, the shell corporations. Charles stole $4 million and framed you, and I almost believed him again. Camilla went still. You investigated. All night. I have evidence. Real evidence. Enough to prove everything. Nathan held out the folder, hands shaking. I'm sorry, Camilla. You told me what happened, and I doubted you. I let my advisors and my fear make me question the one person who'd been honest from the beginning. She didn't take the folder. Why should I believe you now? Because I don't deserve your belief, but I'm asking for it anyway. Nathan set the folder down. I spent the night seeing exactly how Charles destroyed you, and it made me sick. I want to help you get justice. Justice. She moved to the window, staring at rain-lashed streets. Lightning illuminated her profile. I don't want your forgiveness, Nathan. I don't need your pity. What I want is for Charles to lose everything the way I did. I want him powerless. Then let's give you that. Nathan moved closer. I can call a shareholders meeting. We expose everything in front of the board, the press, everyone. We don't just clear your name. We destroy his. She turned, something dangerous in her expression. You're offering me an alliance, partnership, your knowledge, my resources. We take him down together. Camilla studied him with analytical precision. Finally she nodded, sharp, decisive. All right, but we do this my way, methodically, perfectly. One mistake and he walks while we burn. What do we need? Everything authenticated by forensic accountants, the original documents I saved, witness statements, and a stage, somewhere public enough that he can't make it disappear. The quarterly shareholders meeting, 3 weeks. Nathan pulled out his phone. We tell Charles it's about a merger. He'll come expecting to be saved. He'll suspect something. Let him. Arrogant Charles makes mistakes. Nathan began making notes. We'll need lawyers he doesn't own. Analysts willing to testify. Media contacts who'll print the truth. Camilla opened his folder, hands steady as she reviewed the evidence. But he saw her throat work as she swallowed. This is good work. I had motivation. Nathan sat across from her. I know an apology doesn't fix anything, but I'm sorry I doubted you. She looked up, something vulnerable flickering before she locked it down. Don't apologize, just help me win. I will. They spent the rest of the night planning, building an airtight case. Outside, the storm raged. Inside, two strangers began constructing justice from fragments of truth. When dawn broke, Camilla looked at Nathan across the evidence-strewn table and felt something she'd thought dead. Hope. 3 weeks, she said. 3 weeks. The countdown had begun. Nathan made the call at 9 a.m., voice carrying casual authority. Richard, schedule an emergency shareholders meeting for Wentworth National Bank. 3 weeks. Tell the board it's regarding a significant merger proposal. His counsel hesitated. A merger? With Wentworth? Charles will take the meeting. Send formal notice to all major shareholders. And Richard, make sure the press knows. The news broke within hours. Blake Holdings' eyes, Wentworth rescue, merger could save struggling bank. Across town, Camilla opened the lockbox beneath her bed, unsealed for the first time in 3 years. Inside were the documents she'd risked everything to save. Original authorizations bearing Charles's signature, email chains showing him ordering suspicious transactions, audit notes documenting irregularities. Her hands shook as she photographed each page, uploaded them to encrypted storage, made 3 physical copies. This evidence had been her insurance policy. Now it would be her sword. Lucas appeared in her doorway. Tia, are you okay? Camilla looked at her nephew, 13 and too perceptive. I'm going to fix something that's been broken for a long time. The thing with that man. Yes, Mr. Wentworth hurt me, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows the truth. Lucas sat beside her among the documents. Will it be dangerous? Maybe, but some things are worth the risk. He nodded, solemn. Mom said you were the bravest person she knew. Camilla pulled him close. When this is over, things will be better, I promise. The next day, Evelyn Blake swept into Nathan's office unannounced. At 70, she remained formidable. Silver hair perfect, eyes sharp as glass. I heard about your project, the Reyes woman. She settled into a chair. Tell me about her. Nathan tensed. It's business. You're risking Blake Holdings' reputation. I want to know why. Because she's not a fraud. Charles Wentworth framed her, and I can prove it. Can you? Evelyn studied him intensely. Or do you want to believe it because you've developed feelings? The accusation stung. I've seen the evidence. It's not about feelings. It's about facts. Good. Evelyn moved to the window. Because war with Charles Wentworth requires ruthlessness, not noble intentions. She turned back. I've made calls. Camilla Reyes was brilliant before Charles destroyed her. Sharp, ethical, exactly the kind who'd refuse to participate in fraud, which is why he had to eliminate her. You investigated her. I investigated him. Charles has been stealing for years. Your Ms. Reyes simply got too close to discovering it. Evelyn's smile was cold. My son needs people of integrity around him. I think she might be one. The next 2 weeks passed in controlled chaos. Nathan assembled forensic accountants, criminal attorneys, investigators. Camilla worked from shadows, cross-referencing documents, building timelines, anticipating defenses. They met secretly, Nathan's office after hours, anonymous coffee shops, Central Park at dawn. Their partnership developed its own rhythm. Nathan learned Camilla was meticulous to obsession, saw patterns others missed. Camilla learned Nathan was more than privilege. He worked 18-hour days and treated everyone with equal respect. The chemistry between them went unspoken, but undeniable. 5 days before the meeting, Nathan leaked strategic stories. Blake Holdings uncovers possible fraud in Wentworth due diligence. Vague but damning. Charles responded with confidence, dismissing rumors as desperate attacks. He announced he'd attend personally to address these baseless accusations. He was walking into the trap, smiling. 3 days out, Nathan and Camilla reviewed their presentation at midnight. Rain streaked the windows. "He'll fight back," Camilla said quietly. "Charles doesn't lose gracefully. Let him try. We have federal investigators on standby. The evidence went to the FBI anonymously. Even if he shuts down the meeting, the criminal investigation continues." Camilla met his eyes. "Thank you for believing me. I should have believed you from the beginning. But you did eventually. That's more than most." She gathered documents. 3 days. "Then either I get my life back, or I lose everything again." "You won't lose." Nathan came around the desk. "Tomorrow, Charles Wentworth's reign ends, and yours begins." Outside, lightning split the sky. The stage was set. In 3 days, truth would have its reckoning. The grand hall of Wentworth National Bank gleamed with old money arrogance, marble floors polished to mirrors, crystal chandeliers casting prismatic light across mahogany panels. But today the space belonged to a different kind of power. Camera crews lined the walls, their lenses hungry. Reporters filled the front rows, notebooks ready. Flash bulbs popped like small explosions as shareholders filed in, whispers rippling through the crowd. Nathan stood at the podium, composed in a charcoal suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Beside him, a presentation screen glowed blue and waiting. He scanned the room, noting the board members, some curious, some skeptical, all attentive. His mother sat in the third row, expression unreadable. Charles Wentworth entered last, timing his arrival for maximum impact. He moved through the crowd with practiced charm, shaking hands, laughing at jokes no one had made. His confidence was absolute, a man who'd orchestrated this same performance countless times. He took his seat at the front, smoothing his Hermes tie, already smiling his victory smile. Nathan let the silence build before speaking. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice. I know speculation has been rampant about Blake Holdings's intentions regarding Wentworth National Bank." He paused, meeting eyes around the room. "Today that speculation ends. Today this bank changes ownership." Charles's smile widened. The board members leaned forward. Cameras zoomed in. "The new majority shareholder," Nathan continued, his voice carrying across the hushed space, "effective immediately, is Camilla Reyes." The silence that followed was profound, the kind that precedes earthquakes. Charles's smile froze, confusion flickering across his features. Reporters exchanged glances. Someone whispered, "Who?" Then the side doors opened. Camilla walked in wearing a navy suit that Nathan had insisted on buying, tailored, expensive armor. Her hair was pulled back severely, her makeup minimal, but it was her posture that commanded attention, spine straight, chin level, eyes fixed forward with the intensity of someone who'd walked through fire and emerged forged rather than burned. Every camera turned toward her. Flashbulbs exploded. She moved to the podium with measured steps, ignoring the chaos her presence created. Charles had gone pale. "This is absurd. I'm Camilla Reyes," she said into the microphone, her voice steady and clear. "3 years ago, this man destroyed my life. He fabricated evidence, forged documents, and accused me of stealing $4 million to cover his own theft." She pressed a button. The screen behind her illuminated. The first image appeared, a bank transfer authorization bearing Charles's signature. Then another, and another. Financial records, email chains, audio waveforms showing edited conversations. The evidence unspooled methodically, each piece building on the last. "These are the original documents," Camilla continued, her voice never wavering despite the tremor Nathan could see in her hands gripping the podium's edge. "The ones Charles claimed didn't exist. They show him systematically stealing from his own bank, from his investors, from families who trusted him with their futures." A recording played, Charles's voice, unedited this time, instructing his CFO to make sure the Reyes woman's signature is on everything. She's ambitious and expendable. Perfect scapegoat. The room erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Board members turned to Charles, whose face had transformed from pale to flushed, rage warring with panic. "This is fabricated." Charles stood, pointing at Camilla with a shaking finger. "She's a criminal, a liar. I have documentation. You have forgeries." Nathan's voice cut through the chaos. "We've had independent forensic analysis done on every document you submitted 3 years ago. The signatures are fake. The dates don't align. The money trail leads directly back to you. I'll have you both arrested for defamation." The rear doors opened again. 6 FBI agents entered, led by a woman in a dark suit holding credentials. "Charles Wentworth, you're under arrest for wire fraud, money laundering, falsification of documents, and obstruction of justice." The room went silent again, a different silence now, heavy with shock and satisfaction. Charles looked around wildly, searching for allies, for escape. He found neither. "This is ridiculous. Do you know who I am?" "I know the mayor, the governor." "We know exactly who you are, Mr. Wentworth." The lead agent approached calmly. "Please turn around." For a moment, Charles looked like he might run. Then his shoulders sagged. The fight drained out of him as realization set in. This wasn't a setback he could manage or spin. This was the end. The handcuffs clicked into place, metal bright under the chandelier lights. Cameras captured every second, the fall of Manhattan royalty, the collapse of old power. Charles's eyes found Camilla's across the room. She held his gaze, her expression not triumphant but resolute. "I'll fight this," he said, voice hollow. "I have the best lawyers." "So do I," Camilla replied quietly. "The difference is, my case is built on truth." The agents led him away. The crowd erupted, reporters shouting into phones, board members arguing, camera operators jostling for position. Through it all, Camilla stood motionless at the podium, watching Charles disappear through the doors. Nathan moved beside her, his hand finding hers. The touch was gentle, grounding. "You won." Camilla turned to him, and for the first time since entering, her composure cracked slightly. Her eyes glistened, but she didn't let the tears fall. "No," she said, voice thick with emotion she'd held back for 3 years. "The truth won." Applause started somewhere in the back, tentative at first, then building. Shareholders stood, clapping. Reporters joined in. Even some board members rose, their expressions ranging from impressed to chagrined. Camilla looked out at the room, this space that had once represented everything she'd lost. Now it represented something different. Not revenge, justice. She squeezed Nathan's hand once, then released it. She had a statement to make, questions to answer, a future to build. But for this moment, she let herself simply breathe. The nightmare was over. The reckoning had come, and she was still standing. The morning headlines were brutal in their poetry. From waitress to banker, Camilla Reyes buys the institution that destroyed her. Wentworth falls, disgraced CEO arrested in massive fraud scheme. Justice served cold, the woman who bought her vindication. Camilla read them over coffee in Nathan's office. Her coffee tasted better when someone else made it, she'd discovered. The newspapers covered his desk like a patchwork quilt of redemption. Her face stared back from a dozen front pages, some using her old corporate photo, others from yesterday's press conference. "You're a symbol now," Nathan said, leaning against his desk. "Every news outlet wants an interview. Book publishers are calling. There's talk of a documentary. I just wanted my name back." Camilla set down the Times, her expression complicated. "This feels like too much." "It's exactly enough." Evelyn Blake entered without knocking. She never knocked, carrying a leather folder. The public loves a redemption story, especially one where the powerful fall and the wronged rise. "Use it." She dropped the folder in front of Camilla. Inside were financial projections, investment proposals, charitable foundation frameworks. "You now control a failing bank. You can liquidate it, sell it, or do something meaningful. I suggest meaningful." Camilla flipped through the pages, her analytical mind already processing numbers. "A foundation for victims of financial fraud." "Exactly." Evelyn's smile was sharp with approval. "You donate 30% of the acquisition profit, enough to make headlines but not cripple you financially. You help families who've been destroyed by people like Charles. And you prove you're not interested in revenge, just justice." "I like it." Camilla looked up. "But I want more. Educational programs. Microloans for women entrepreneurs. Legal aid for people fighting corporate corruption." Nathan pulled up a chair, already making notes. "We can structure it as a non-profit arm of the restructured bank. Reyes Foundation. It has a ring to it." Over the next week, the transformation became real. Camilla held press conferences, her composure never breaking, her message consistent. This wasn't about personal victory, but systematic accountability. She announced the foundation, dedicated to her sister's memory and Lucas's future. The public response was overwhelming. Donations poured in. Other fraud victims came forward with their stories. The narrative shifted from scandal to inspiration. Nathan, meanwhile, used the moment to clean house. Blake Holdings divested from questionable investments, weapons manufacturers, predatory lenders, companies with poor labor records. His board pushed back. His mother supported him. Ethics are good branding, Evelyn told resistant shareholders, and my son has always been idealistic. Work with it. Lucas noticed the change in his aunt immediately. She smiled more, slept better. When Evelyn invited them to the Blake estate for dinner, a sprawling mansion in Connecticut, Lucas walked through rooms larger than their entire apartment with wide eyes. "You could live here," Evelyn told Camilla over dessert, her tone casual but eyes sharp. "The West Wing is unused. Lucas would have space, proper schools nearby. I couldn't possibly. You can and will. Nathan needs you close for the foundation work anyway. And that boy," Evelyn nodded toward Lucas, who was examining a Monet with careful hands, "deserves better than Washington Heights." Camilla's throat tightened. "Thank you. Don't thank me. Earn it." Charles Wentworth's trial was swift and merciless. The evidence was overwhelming. Witnesses who'd been too frightened to speak 3 years ago came forward. The prosecution was relentless. When Camilla took the stand, the courtroom fell silent. She spoke calmly, recounting the destruction of her career, the years of poverty, the weight of false accusation, but her voice never held malice. "What do you want to happen to Mr. Wentworth?" the prosecutor asked. Camilla looked at Charles, diminished now in an orange jumpsuit, his silver hair unwashed, his confidence evaporated. "I want him to understand what he did. Not just to me, but to every person whose trust he violated. I want him to face consequences, but I don't want him to suffer needlessly. I want him to see what justice looks like, not revenge." The jury deliberated for 4 hours. The verdict: guilty on all counts. 20 years in federal prison. Charles was led away without looking back. Camilla felt nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction. Just the quiet relief of a chapter finally closing. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. "How does it feel to win?" "It feels like breathing," Camilla said simply. "Like I can finally move forward." That evening, Nathan found her in the foundation offices, formerly Wentworth's executive suite, now stripped of mahogany and filled with light. "I have a proposition." "Another one?" She smiled. "The last one worked out well. Join Blake Holdings board. We need your perspective, your ethics." He paused. "I need you there." Camilla studied him, this man who doubted her, then believed her, then fought beside her. "On one condition: full transparency in all operations, and pay equity across all positions. No more old boys club. Deal." He extended his hand. She took it but didn't let go. "Thank you, Nathan, for everything. We did this together." "No." She squeezed his hand gently. "You gave me back my power. I'll never forget that." 3 months later, the Wall Street Journal ran a feature. "The New Face of Ethical Banking: How Camilla Reyes is Changing Corporate Culture." She was photographed in her foundation office, Lucas beside her, Nathan standing supportively in the background. The article detailed her reforms: radical transparency, employee ownership programs, community investment. The final paragraph captured it perfectly. "In an industry built on exploitation and secrecy, Reyes represents something revolutionary. The possibility that power can be earned through integrity rather than seized through deception. Her rise isn't just personal redemption. It's a challenge to every institution that prizes profit over principle." Camilla cut out the article, added it to a growing folder. Not for ego, but for Lucas, so he'd know that falling didn't mean failing. That justice delayed wasn't justice denied. That truth eventually always won. The rooftop terrace of the Reyes Foundation building caught the last light of day, Manhattan sprawling beneath in shades of amber and shadow. Camilla stood at the railing, watching the city transform from concrete and glass into something almost beautiful. 6 months had passed since the trial, since Charles's conviction, since her life had stopped being defined by what she'd lost and started being shaped by what she'd built. The door opened behind her. She didn't turn. She'd learned to recognize Nathan's footsteps, the particular cadence of his approach. "You're working late again," he said, coming to stand beside her. His tie was loosened, jacket slung over one shoulder. He looked tired but content. The perpetual tension he'd carried when they first met finally eased. "So are you." She glanced at him, allowing herself a small smile. "Worried I'll burn out? Worried you'll forget there's more to life than work?" He set his jacket on a nearby chair, leaned against the railing. The breeze ruffled his hair, making him look younger, less like the billionaire businessman, and more like just Nathan. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the sun sink lower. This had become their routine, stolen moments between meetings and foundation work, conversations that felt both ordinary and significant. "I've been thinking," Nathan said finally, his voice careful. "About us, about where this is going." Camilla's chest tightened. She'd known this conversation was coming, had both dreaded and anticipated it. "Nathan, let me finish." He turned to face her fully. "I'm not good at this. Relationships, vulnerability, all of it. I'm better with spreadsheets and contracts. But with you, I don't want contracts." He paused, searching for words. "I want to start over. No expectations, no promises we're not ready to make. Just possibility." "That's terrifying," Camilla said quietly. "I know. But here's what I've learned. I lost faith in people somewhere along the way. Started seeing everyone as either assets or liabilities. Reduced relationships to transactions. Then you walked into my life and corrected my financial models." A smile flickered across his face. "You reminded me that integrity exists, that some people can't be bought or broken. You gave me back my faith in humanity, Camilla. I'd like the chance to figure out what else we might give each other." Camilla felt something shift in her chest, the careful walls she'd maintained beginning to crack. "I don't know if I'm ready for this." "Then we'll take it slow." Nathan's hand moved toward hers on the railing, not quite touching. No pressure, no timeline, just honest. She looked at their hands, almost connecting. 3 years ago, she'd believed love was something she'd lost the right to want, that Charles had stolen not just her career but her capacity for trust. Yet here was Nathan, patient and present, asking for nothing except the chance to try. "The word love still scares me," she admitted. "Then we won't use it. Not until you're ready." His fingers finally brushed hers, tentative, asking permission. Before Camilla could respond, the terrace door burst open. Lucas came running out, newspaper clutched in both hands, his 13-year-old energy filling the space. "Tia, look, you're on the cover of Business Weekly. They called you the conscience of Wall Street." He thrust the magazine at her, practically vibrating with excitement. Camilla took it, saw her own face staring back. Professional photo, serious expression. The headline reading, "Camilla Reyes, the woman who bought justice and changed everything." "Look at the article," Lucas insisted, bouncing slightly. "They talk about how you're inspiring women everywhere. How you won." Camilla set down the magazine and pulled Lucas into a hug, holding him tight. "No, mijo, we won. You, me, Nathan, everyone who believed when it would have been easier not to." She felt Lucas relax into the embrace, his arms wrapping around her waist. Over his shoulder, she saw Nathan watching them, something in his expression shifting, softening. Understanding passed between them without words. This was what mattered. Not the headlines or the foundation or even the vindication. This boy who'd lost his mother and gained an aunt marked by scandal. This makeshift family built from broken pieces. Lucas pulled back, grinning. "Does this mean I can tell my friends my aunt is famous?" "It means you can tell your friends your aunt is lucky to have you." Camilla ruffled his hair. "Now go do your homework. I know you haven't finished that history essay." Lucas groaned but complied, disappearing back through the door with the magazine tucked under his arm. His footsteps echoed down the stairwell, gradually fading. Silence settled again, deeper now. The sun had fully set, city lights beginning to dominate the skyline. A light rain started, barely more than mist, the kind that hung in the air rather than falling. "I remember this," Camilla said softly. "Rain like this, the night you came to my apartment, soaked through, with evidence and apologies. I remember being terrified you'd slam the door in my face." Nathan moved closer. "You would have been justified. I was tempted." She turned to face him fully. "But something in your eyes, you looked haunted. Like seeing the truth about Charles had broken something in you." It had. Made me realize how easily I'd almost become complicit. His hand found hers properly now, fingers intertwining. "You could have used that, manipulated my guilt. Instead, you just asked me to help you fight." The rain intensified slightly, cool against Camilla's skin. Neither of them moved to go inside. Nathan's free hand came up, fingertips brushing her cheek with careful reverence. "I don't have pretty words. Can't promise I won't mess this up, but I can promise I'll try. That I see you, not the headline or the symbol, but you, and I'd like to see where this goes." Camilla's breath caught. For 3 years, she'd armored herself against hope, against wanting anything beyond survival and vindication. But standing here with Nathan's hand warm in hers and rain falling soft around them, she felt something she'd thought Charles had killed, the capacity to believe in tomorrow. "Okay," she whispered. "We'll try." Nathan's smile was slow, genuine, transforming his usually controlled features into something boyish and hopeful. He leaned in gradually, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his lips met hers, tentative at first, then deeper as she responded. The kiss tasted like rain and new beginnings, like 3 years of pain finally releasing its grip, like permission to want something beyond justice and survival. When they pulled apart, Camilla found herself smiling, really smiling, the kind that came from somewhere deep and unguarded. "No contracts," she said. "No contracts," Nathan agreed. "Just this." They stood together as the rain fell, the city humming its evening symphony around them. Camilla let herself lean into Nathan's warmth, his arm coming around her shoulders, holding without claiming. For the first time since Charles destroyed her life, she allowed herself to imagine a future that wasn't defined by the past. A future built on trust earned rather than stolen, on love chosen rather than mandated. The past was finally dissolving, not erased, because the scars remained, but losing its power to dictate who she could become. In the distance, sirens wailed, traffic honked. The city continued its endless, indifferent rhythm. But up here, in this moment, Camilla Reyes let herself simply be. Not the victim, not the symbol, just a woman who'd survived hell and found, impossibly, something worth living for on the other side. The brass letters gleamed in morning sunlight. Reyes Foundation, bold, unapologetic, permanent. Where Wentworth National Bank had once proclaimed old money and older corruption, Camilla's name now represented something different. Second chances. Earned justice. The radical notion that integrity could be profitable. Camilla stood across the street, coffee in hand, watching workers remove the last traces of the old signage. Beside her, Nathan checked his phone but kept glancing up, gauging her reaction. "Strange, isn't it?" she said quietly. "Seeing your name 40 feet tall. Uncomfortable. Terrifying." She took a sip of coffee. Good coffee now, not the burnt diner kind. "What if I fail? What if this becomes just another institution that talks about ethics but practices exploitation? Then you'll fix it." Nathan pocketed his phone. "That's what you do. You see problems others ignore, and you solve them." The foundation had transformed in 8 months from concept to reality. The building's interior had been gutted, all that dark mahogany and intimidating marble replaced with light, glass, and open space. Where loan officers once denied mortgages to people deemed unworthy, counselors now helped fraud victims rebuild their lives. Where Charles had orchestrated theft, Camilla's team financed education and entrepreneurship for women systematically excluded from opportunity. Inside, Camilla moved through the first floor, greeting staff by name. Maria, who processed microloan applications. James, whose legal clinic helped people fight predatory lenders. Sophia, running the educational programs that had already sent 43 women to college. "Ms. Reyes, we have the board meeting at 10, her assistant reminded her. A young woman named Ashley, who'd been a waitress until the foundation hired her. "And the Times interview at 2. "Thank you, Ashley." Camilla paused. "How's your mother doing?" "Better. The foundation's legal team got her mortgage fraud case settled. She gets to keep the house." Ashley's eyes glistened. "You saved her." "The law saved her. We just made sure she had access to it." The board meeting was intensive. Budget reviews, grant applications, program assessments. Camilla ran it with the same analytical precision she'd once applied to bank portfolios. But now the numbers represented lives changed rather than profits extracted. Nathan attended as consultant, offering insights but never overriding her authority. He'd learned to step back, to support without controlling. It was a dance they'd perfected, professional respect layered over personal intimacy. After the meeting, Evelyn Blake swept in, imperious as always. "The gala is in 3 weeks. We've sold all 500 seats at $10,000 each. That's $5 million for your programs before the auction even starts." "Evelyn, that's incredible." Camilla felt genuine warmth toward the older woman who'd become unlikely ally and mentor. "It's strategic." But Evelyn's smile softened the words. "You're good branding, dear. From waitress to philanthropist, people eat that up." Use it. The gala became Manhattan's social event of the season. The ballroom glittered with wealth and influence, but this time the money flowed toward justice rather than maintaining systems of oppression. Lucas attended in his first tuxedo, uncomfortable but proud, fielding questions from society reporters about his remarkable aunt. "She's the strongest person I know," he told a Vogue journalist. "My mom died and I had nothing. Tia Camila had even less, no job, no reputation, everyone thinking she was a criminal. But she never gave up, she just kept fighting." The quote went viral. By morning, Roger like Reyes was trending, women sharing stories of overcoming injustice, of fighting systems designed to crush them. In interviews, journalists inevitably asked the same question. "You bought your freedom. How does that feel?" Camilla's answer never varied. "I didn't buy anything. I earned it." Freedom isn't a purchase. It's what happens when you refuse to let injustice define you. The foundation's impact rippled outward. Other cities established similar programs. Corporate boards added ethics clauses to contracts. 3 major banks reformed their practices after whistleblowers cited Camilla's example as inspiration. 1 year after Charles's conviction, the city officially renamed the plaza outside the foundation Justice Square. The mayor gave a speech. Cameras rolled. But Camilla's favorite moment came afterward, watching children play around the fountain while their parents read the plaque explaining why this space bore that name. The final Wentworth sign, the one from Charles's old office, was donated to a museum exhibit on corporate fraud. Where it had once represented power, it now served as warning. Nathan found Camilla on the foundation's roof that evening, her preferred thinking spot. Another successful day changing the world. Another day trying to. She leaned into him when he wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "Sometimes I wonder what Charles thinks. Sitting in prison, watching everything he built become something good. Does it matter?" No. And she meant it. Charles had become irrelevant, not through revenge but through replacement. His legacy was erasure. Hers was construction. Rain began falling, gentle this time, not the punishing storms that had marked her darker days. The city smelled clean, washed new. "I love you," Nathan said quietly. "Thought you should know." Camilla looked up at him, saw vulnerability and certainty mixed in equal measure. The words didn't scare her anymore. "I love you too." Simple. True. Earned through shared battle and mutual respect. Below them, Manhattan glowed, millions of lives intersecting, each with their own struggles and triumphs. Somewhere in that sprawl, someone was being wronged. Someone else was fighting back. The cycle continued, would always continue. But here, in this moment, justice had won. Love had taken root. Dignity had been restored. The rain stopped. Stars emerged, barely visible through light pollution, but present nonetheless. Camilla Reyes, former analyst, wrongfully accused, diner waitress, foundation director, symbol of resilience, stood in the life she'd rebuilt from ashes and allowed herself, finally, to be at peace. The story had found its ending. And it was good. 3 years had passed since Charles Wentworth's conviction. 3 years of rebuilding, of watching the foundation flourish, of learning to sleep without nightmares. Camilla had convinced herself she'd moved on, that the past had released its grip. But there remained one final thread to cut. The Federal Correctional Institution stood 2 hours upstate, concrete and razor wire against gray autumn sky. Camilla sat in the parking lot for 10 minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel, before finding the courage to exit the car. The visitor processing was dehumanizing by design, metal detectors, pat-downs, stern-faced guards who looked at her with vague recognition. One whispered to another. She caught the words, "That woman from the news." The visiting room smelled of industrial cleaner and desperation. Families clustered at plastic tables, conducting conversations under fluorescent lights that made everyone look sick. Camilla took a seat in the corner, arranged her hands carefully in her lap, and waited. Charles entered, flanked by a guard. The transformation was shocking. 3 years had aged him a decade, his silver hair now white and thinning, his tailored suit confidence replaced by the shuffling gait of institutional life. The orange jumpsuit hung loose on a frame that had lost bulk and presence. But it was his eyes that struck her most, hollow, stripped of the predatory intelligence that had once defined him. He sat across from her slowly, as if his joints ached. For a long moment, neither spoke. Why? Charles's voice was hoarse, smaller than she remembered. No irony colored the question. No manipulation. Just genuine confusion. Why come here? Camilla studied him, this man who'd destroyed her life with such casual cruelty. She'd imagined this moment countless times, rehearsed speeches about justice and consequences. But sitting here, facing the diminished reality of Charles Wentworth, those speeches felt unnecessary. Because I needed to look at you without hating you, she said simply. I needed to see that you couldn't hurt me anymore. Charles's gaze dropped to the table. His hands, once manicured, once signing documents that ruined lives, were rough now, nails bitten short. I destroyed you. You tried to. Camilla kept her voice level. But I'm still here. The foundation helps hundreds of people. My nephew is thriving. I'm engaged to someone who sees me as an equal. She paused. You took 3 years of my life. I took the rest of yours. We're not even, but we're done. I wake up every day in a cell 6 by 8. Charles's voice cracked slightly. I have 17 more years. My children won't speak to me. My name is synonymous with fraud. Everything I built is gone. Yes. Does that make you happy? Camilla considered the question honestly. No. It makes me resolved. You made choices, Charles. You chose to steal, to lie, to destroy an innocent person rather than face accountability. These are the consequences of those choices. I was afraid. The admission came out barely above a whisper. Charles finally looked up, meeting her eyes. The auditors were closing in. I'd been skimming for years, just small amounts at first, then more. I told myself I deserved it, that I'd built the bank, that it was essentially mine anyway. Then suddenly the numbers didn't add up and you... He stopped, swallowed hard. You were asking questions. So you made me the villain. I told myself you were ambitious, that you'd probably done something questionable too, that it was just business. Charles's laugh was bitter. I convinced myself of my own lies. By the time the dust settled, I almost believed you were guilty. Almost. Almost. He looked at his hands. I lied because I was terrified people would see what I really was. A fraud. A thief who inherited wealth and squandered it on yachts and mistresses. A man who'd never earned anything honestly in his life. And now they know, Camilla said quietly, without triumph. Charles nodded slowly. Now everyone knows. Silence settled between them, not comfortable, but no longer charged with violence. Camilla felt something release in her chest, a tension she'd carried so long she'd forgotten it was there. I don't forgive you, she said finally. What you did was unforgivable, but I'm letting go of the anger, not for you, for me, because carrying hatred is exhausting, and I have better things to do with my energy. She stood. Charles remained seated, looking suddenly older, smaller. Thank you for coming, he said. I don't deserve it, but thank you. Camilla didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. She turned and walked toward the exit, her footsteps echoing on linoleum. Behind her, she heard the guard say, "Time's up, Wentworth. Back to your cell." The heavy door closed with metallic finality. The sound of keys turning in locks followed her down the corridor, a sound she'd once feared. Now just background noise signifying she was leaving while Charles stayed. Outside, autumn sunlight broke through clouds, warm on her face after the institution's artificial chill. The parking lot stretched empty except for one car, Nathan's, engine running. Him visible through the windshield reading something on his tablet. He looked up when she approached, set aside the tablet, his expression careful. How do you feel? Camilla slid into the passenger seat, letting the door close behind her. She sat for a moment, processing. Free, she said finally. Really, truly free. Nathan reached over, took her hand. Ready to go home? She looked out at the road stretching back toward the city, toward the foundation, and Lucas and the life she'd built from ruins. Toward dinners with Evelyn and board meetings and the ordinary, beautiful normalcy of a future she'd earned. Now I am, Camilla said. Nathan pulled out of the parking lot. In the rearview mirror, the prison grew smaller, then disappeared entirely as they rounded a bend. Camilla didn't look back. There was nothing behind her worth seeing. Ahead, Manhattan's skyline emerged on the horizon, glass and steel catching light, promising and indifferent. Somewhere in that sprawl was home, was purpose, was love. The past had finally released its grip, and Camilla Reyes, survivor and builder of second chances, was ready for whatever came next. Morning light turned the Reyes Foundation building into a beacon, glass facade reflecting sunrise in shades of gold and amber. Above the entrance, letters spelled out the foundation's motto, "Truth is capital." Simple words, but they represented everything Camilla had learned, everything she'd fought for. She arrived at 7:30 before most staff, savoring these quiet moments when the building belonged only to her and possibility. Her heels clicked softly on polished floors, no more worn linoleum or sticky diner tiles. The difference still startled her sometimes. Through glass walls, she watched the city wake. Street vendors setting up carts, early commuters rushing toward subway stations. The ordinary miracle of another day, another chance to get things right. "Morning, Ms. Reyes." Maria from accounting appeared with coffee, perfect temperature, no sugar. After 5 years, her team knew her habits. "The quarterly report is on your desk. We're up 18% in successful loan completions." 18%. Camilla accepted the coffee gratefully. "That's nearly 100 more families with stable businesses. Because of you. Because of us." Camilla smiled. "I just opened doors. You all did the real work." She moved through corridors that hummed with purpose. Here, the legal clinic where victims of predatory lending found representation. There, the educational center where women learned financial literacy and business management. Every space designed to dismantle the systems that had once crushed her. The foundation employed 200 people now, most of them former victims of corporate fraud or financial exploitation. They understood the work wasn't charity but justice, weren't motivated by profit but by the memory of powerlessness. Her office occupied the top floor, windows overlooking the city, but the furnishings deliberately modest. No mahogany, no leather, just clean lines, functional beauty, and photographs documenting the foundation's impact. Families in front of new businesses, students at graduation ceremonies, people rebuilding what corruption had destroyed. On her desk, a framed New York Times article from last week. 5 years later, how Camilla Reyes changed corporate accountability. Beside it, a drawing from one of Lucas's art classes, a portrait of her, fierce and kind in equal measure. The intercom buzzed. "Ms. Reyes, your 10 o'clock is here." Nathan entered carrying flowers, daisies, not roses. He'd learned she preferred simple beauty to expensive gestures. His hair was slightly disheveled, tie already loosened despite the early hour. 5 years together, and he still made her heart catch slightly. "Brought you breakfast, too." He set down a paper bag. "Bagel from that place you like. Don't pretend you've eaten." "I had coffee." "Coffee isn't food." He kissed her cheek, familiar and comfortable. "Big day. Are you nervous?" Tonight was the Foundation's 5th anniversary gala. 5 years of existence, 5 years of impact. The event would draw politicians, celebrities, corporate leaders, all the people who'd once dismissed or destroyed her, now eager to associate with her success. Not nervous, reflective. Camilla opened the bag, found the bagel still warm. 5 years ago, I was serving coffee and living in fear. Now I'm here. Sometimes it feels surreal. You earned every bit of it. A knock interrupted them. Evelyn Blake entered without waiting for permission. Still imperious at 75, still treating the world as her personal domain. Behind her came Lucas, now 18 and preparing for college, tall and confident in ways that made Camilla's heart ache with pride. "There's my favorite revolutionary," Evelyn announced. "Ready for your close-up tonight? Every media outlet in New York will be there." "I'm ready." Camilla hugged Lucas, who'd grown taller than her. "You're speaking tonight, right?" 3 minutes on what justice means to families like mine. Lucas grinned. "I've been practicing. Evelyn says I'm quite moving." "You are," Evelyn confirmed. "Uses me as a test audience. I've cried twice, which tells you something." They spent the morning reviewing logistics, seating arrangements, auction items, the presentation highlighting 5 years of achievement. The foundation had helped 800 families rebuild after fraud, funded scholarships for 200 women, forced legislative changes in financial oversight. The numbers represented lives changed, futures reclaimed. By evening, the ballroom glittered with strategic opulence, beautiful enough to impress donors, restrained enough to avoid obscenity. Camilla stood at the entrance in a midnight blue gown, Nathan beside her in classic black tie. Together, they greeted 500 guests who represented power, wealth, and increasingly, genuine commitment to change. The evening's highlight came when Lucas took the stage. Camilla watched from the front row, Nathan's hand warm in hers. 5 years ago, Lucas began, voice steady, my aunt was called a criminal. People crossed the street to avoid her. I was ashamed to say her name at school. He paused. Today, she's my hero. Not because she won, but because she never stopped fighting. She taught me that justice isn't something you're given. It's something you build, piece by piece, even when everyone says you've already lost. The room erupted in applause. Camilla felt tears threaten but held them back. This was what mattered, not vindication, but the next generation learning that resistance was possible. Later, as guests mingled over champagne and strategic conversations, a journalist approached. Ms. Reyes, one final question. What would you say to Charles Wentworth now? Camilla considered, then smiled. I'd say thank you. He tried to destroy me, and instead taught me exactly how strong I could be. His attempt at my ending became my beginning. The quote would trend by morning. From waitress to president, justice served cold and sweet. As the gala wound down, Camilla and Nathan slipped away to the terrace. Rain had started, soft, gentle, the kind that cleansed rather than punished. The city spread below them, lights reflecting off wet pavement, creating pathways of gold. 5 years, Nathan said quietly. Think you'll do 5 more? At least? Camilla leaned into him. There's so much work left. So many people who need someone to believe them when the system doesn't. Then we keep going. We keep going. The rain fell lighter now, barely more than mist. Somewhere in the city, someone was being wronged. Someone else was gathering courage to fight back. The cycle continued, would always continue. But here, in this moment, progress was real. Justice was possible. Love had taken root in scorched earth. Camilla looked out at Manhattan, the city that had witnessed her destruction and her resurrection, where she'd served coffee to people who didn't see her, where she now ran a foundation changing lives. The past was memory now, not prison. The future was choice, not fate. She'd lost everything once. And from that loss, she'd built something that mattered more than what was taken. Not revenge, but legacy. Not bitterness, but hope. The woman who'd been destroyed had bought her own destiny, and she was just getting started.